We now turn to the struggle of the Alevi people, a distinct religious and spiritual tradition that has faced centuries of marginalization, forced assimilation, and silencing in Muslim-majority states. Their story reflects many of the same challenges we've discussed today: how sacred lands are taken, how myths and histories are distorted, and how entire traditions are pressured into disappearance. To help us understand this struggle, we are honored to welcome Dr. Dilsa Deniz G, a Kurdish socio-cultural anthropologist whose research focuses on gender, cultural, political, and religious practices among Kurdish Alevis. Her work explores Alevi geography, sacred myths, and the resilience of Alevi traditions, particularly in the city of Dersham. She has also conducted research on eco-spirituality, examining the deep connections between environmental consciousness and spiritual practices in Kurdish traditions. In addition to her monograph and several book chapters, her recent research on the Kurdish mother goddess Shamaran brings to light an ancient lineage of wisdom that continues to survive despite centuries of oppression. Her research is a vital contribution to the understanding of how spiritual traditions endure in the face of erasure and how communities fight back against systemic silencing. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dilsa Deniz Ji.
Thank you so much, Sigrupa. I hope I pronounce it rightly. Thank you so much for inviting. It's great to be with you and then listening all this tradition that very enriching experience from scholars around the world. So can I share my PowerPoint? Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so my title was Epistemic and Social Violence Against Kurdish Alevi Experience. If you look at the basic search on Google, who is Alevis, probably you'll get those answers: a syncretic sect of Islam, heterodox sect of Islam, Shia Islam, folk Islam, and Turkish folk Islam. That is you'll get. But so what is Islam? In order to define a religion or part of religion as a Islam, so Islam has a basic pillars for its 5 basic pillars, and the Shahada, Salah, Zakat, Shawm, and Hajj. But none of these actually practiced by the Alevis. So, despite that, it is kept to refer Alevis as Muslim. So what is connection with the Muslims, with Alevis? There are only a few names. Muhammad, because the prophet of Islam, and Ali, his cousin, the first sort of person who converted to Islam and who was also the commander of Islamic army, and his wife, and also daughter of Muhammad, Fatima, and their 2 sons. So that is only like connection between Alevis and Muslims. So they call like Ahl Bayt, means the family members. But Muhammad has several marriages. He has a lot of children. Also, Ali has several marriages and he has many children. But why they all only connected these 4 people with the Muhammad 5 people? So Muhammad was prophet because Alevism is a kind of religion, Indo-Iranian religion, that has a kind of respect for any kind of religion. I remember reading like some memoirs from the Christian missionaries. They also, when they contacted with the Alevis, because Alevis was respecting Jesus Christ a lot, so they thought they were like actually sort of Christian as well. But with the connection with these family members, 4 people with the Islam, because they're all killed by Muslims actually. if you look at that. Ali was killed in the mosque, and his wife was died after her house was raided by Abu Bakr, and she was pregnant. After that, she had like trauma, and then she died from that. And Hassan was poisoned by, again, this political rival of his father, and Hussein with his followers was killed in Karbala. They all killed, actually. So that is the actually answer of the question why Alevi considered to be connected to Islam. Alevi did that because they had to survive. This is a kind of strategy of survival, because if you live in a kind of Muslim-dominated country or area, so they would first ask you to convert to Islam. If you do not, and then you have to die, so they will kill you. And then in order to survive and to practice their religion, they had like find a kind of strategy to do both, not to be killed, but also to practice their religion, how they did. So, and besides that, they have a lot of like connection with Ali, but Ali is not, is a something else that constructing some other like personality that nothing to do with the Islamic Ali. So I will explain later. So I will, as you see, like a few, for instance, differences between the Alevism and Islam. For instance, Alevis, they start with the ritual Bismi Shah. The Shah is the divine, the main divinity for Alevis. Although now they gradual change because of the pressure of the monotheism, Abrahamic monotheism, actually. So the Muslim, they say Bismillah. And in Alevi practice, ritual, there is no gender segregation because it's also related to the reincarnation, which is refused by the Islam. And the main the catharsis of Alevism is reincarnation. You change the form. And so the change in form is nothing to do with the gender because it's a kind of just a form of one times or two times, whatever. It doesn't matter. So you're just changing form. So this is nothing to do with any kind of gender-based hierarchy. Therefore, in the ritual, so I show you, for instance, here, they're all men and women together. And so knowing that the Muslim actually rejected that, and then they sort of spread some kind of rumors that it was like an orgy, the Alevi ritual as orgy, because they have like sacred instrument, they play songs, because Alevi faith is actually the ritual go through these sacred songs, through this sacred instrument of you call like tambur. So that's how they actually define it as a kind of orgy, because they are like mixed gender rituals. And also monogamy, for instance, in Alevi faith, you cannot marry more than one spouse, particularly for men and women also not, but men also. And there is no divorce. So it's like a lifetime partnership when you start. Of course, there are like few differences when you don't have children or sometimes male children. And sometimes because of power, they become so rich, some person they did. But normally, practically, you cannot have like polygamy. And also divorce is not permitted to anyone. If, in some cases, for instance, which is very, very, very rare, adultery, and it might happen. But this is collectively decided, not by man, I'm divorcing you. For Muslims, it's the very basics. And a man says to a woman 3 times, you divorced, then she is divorced. But also in Islamic tradition, there's like concubine as well. In Alevi tradition, you never ever even imagine that. This is so immoral. And so never mention that. That is how it's practiced. The pilgrimage, actually, when I was listening to Aditi, I forgot the surname, sorry, and yeah, sacred geography, because the Alevi, wherever they live, they worship this geography as well. So that is actually the definition of the Alevism as well. For instance, the the body for 1,000 times you change the form, and 1,001 you become the perfect human being, and then you eternally become part of this holy body. Holy body means the universe or the earth, whatever. So that's how it's explained. And so if you look at the Islam, this is totally against it, because Islam it refuses, and it's like considered as heretic to worship the nature. So this is a gem ceremony. That's how they gather. It doesn't mean like every time, so once a year, twice a year, or once a 3 years, it doesn't matter, whenever they need it. This is actually a very important gathering. It's not just dancing or something, but also because Alevis, they didn't cooperate with any state formation like Ottoman or Republic of Turkey or Iran or whatever. So they always stay out of the central powers, because they didn't really want to become any part of these states. So the jurisdiction actually done through their gem ceremony too. Whatever problems are, they solve there, and then because it's a kind of purification, when you finish all the problems, solve all the problems in the society, it can be like a social conflict, but also someone in need, or any kind of problem that you can imagine is solved through these gatherings. Anybody can talk about it, can raise or reject or whatever, but the discussion, anything, problems is discussed in the collective gatherings, and they will solve through the rules of the religion, which is very humanitarian, and so that everybody would accept that and sort of solve the problems. And through this is a purification, because as I mentioned, Ali was the commander of the Muslim army. He was like forced like thousands of people to convert into Islam, and they kill people for the religion. But in Alevi faith, if you kill anyone, you are not allowed to get into the ritual, because it's kind of pollution, is so you cannot be purified. And there are like two major crimes that cannot be purified, and you cannot be accepted into the ritual. One is like killing, and secondly is the sexual crimes, particularly against women. So, and if you look at that, the Ali cannot be part of Alevi faith. So, but he was like, his name was used as a strategy to refuse. For instance, when they say, why you don't go to the mosque, you say yourself Muslim, but you don't go to the mosque. They would say, oh, Ali was killed there, that's why we don't go there. So you see, that's the strategy is important. And then what is Alevism? For me, Alevism is an independent, very ancient Aryanic religion. I mean that the land of Iran is not the state of Iran, of course. This Ari land. And I think Indo-Iranian I could say, but I'm not really very well aware of it, so I don't want to use that. But definitely is not the religion that related to Middle East, the Islamic, like Saudi Arabia or whatsoever, but Iranian, through the particularly West Iran and Zagros region. And so in my research now, I'm confidently saying that is a kind of a tradition of the Mother Earth goddess, as we saw that, because her body is actually the one who worship. That means sacred geography. And in my research, so I came to the conclusion that the 70% of this faith is through the nature worship, which is sacred geography, and also ancestor cults, because this is used for the administration, as I mentioned, and the slight connection with the Islam with only these names, nothing else. So the nature worship is so intense, and sacred mountains, rivers, trees, rocks, springs, sun, moon, sacred animals, and so on. So this is, for instance, one of the most important pilgrimage is site, the Dizgun Mountain, which is actually, although now like masculinized, but it is obviously a kind of worshiping site for the Mother Earth Goddess. If you look at this, it's a kind of shape of a pregnant woman lying on her back. That's how actually the Mother Earth Goddess faith connected to the sacred geography, and people go there and worship that. That is the reason for that. And so from the Ottoman Empire, Alevism was a kind of danger for them because they were like conflict with the Safavids. Safavids also used the Alevi faith, and whenever they shaped this Shia Islam, 12 Imam Shiism, and they become like turn their back and they change, they become Muslim, but they left the Alevism. But their conflict with the Ottoman always become suspicious to the Alevis as they were like cooperating with the Safavids and so on. So they become like hostile to Alevis. They started to hunt them, and thousands of Alevi were killed by the Ottomans, and always they were like following wherever they found them to kill them whatsoever. There are lots of fatwas giving, and so the Alevis that therefore they had to like live on the highlands, which is Dersim is one of them, and Dersim was not really Ottoman succeed to get into the Dersim because they're very highland, very mountainy and forestry, and they couldn't. That's how actually survived Alevism. Whenever you go anywhere in Anatolia and Kurdistan, the Alevis always living on the highlands in order to survive. That's how they survive. That is why they actually lost all this. For instance, the archaeological remnants. We don't have anything. That most of their heritage being sort of erased from the Earth's surface. And coming to the Republic of the foundation of Republic, Mustafa Kemal during this War of Independence, he contacted the Alevi leaders and get support of them. But whenever they formed the Republic, they changed the formation, and it was like Turkish Islamic synthesis ideology structured the state. And after just 2 years after this formation of the republic, they had this the law on the maintenance order, and then they prohibited all these like Sufi orders, which is like Alevism, while they constructed mosque and sponsored 100% the mosque, and then they started to prohibit the Alevi faith, because in Alevi faith normally the peers who actually give this religious service, they travel to Alevi communities and serving in their place, in their atmosphere. But then when they prohibited, they couldn't travel. And also, they couldn't actually have gem ceremonies because it was prohibited as well. So, and what happened after that? Because the knowledge, the Alevi heritage, because it's oral heritage, they couldn't transmit to the one generation to others since 100 years now. So, and secondly, they prohibited this ritual, they couldn't do it. And the third, because it was like created a very dangerous atmosphere, which is like a kind of, again, started hunting Alevis. And so following that, and they started to attack to the Alevi people where they collectively reside, and then they had them to push out this collective residence. So they scattered in the urban of the Turkey. So they couldn't they couldn't say to their children that they were Alevis, because in schools on the streets they would be subjected to discrimination and violence. So that's even many children of these families, they didn't know that they were Alevis until they become like 28 years old, 30 years old, the families, in order to protect them. You see, that's like a blockage, and they couldn't actually transmitted their religion to. In Kurdish cases, the Kurdish language was also banned. So because they become like Turcophone, all this young generation, like nearly at least 60 years old people, maybe they can speak a bit, but the younger generation, they cannot speak Kurdish as well. So all the Kurdish Alevi heritage also sort of erased through this language ban. And then what they with that, but why they still continue to define Alevism as a part of Islam? There are two main reasons. One, to plunder the Alevi heritage, because it's very valuable, very like rich heritage, so they can collect some of them and then revise and use for themselves, which is still using. For instance, in Balkanese countries, Ottoman used actually Alevi faith. They fixed a new sort of sect, Bektashism, using Alevi faith mixing with the Islamic information. They sort of create a new kind of philosophy and impacting the Christian families or children in Balkanese countries to convert into Islam as a kind of like Islam. And then now they're still using, for instance, while Alevism under so much pressure in Turkey, oppression, but they constitute like Yunus Emre Institute. Yunus Emre is one of the Turkish Alevi poet who has a beautiful poems on like spiritual love and so on. They're still using his philosophy to make people to convert in Central Asia, in Africa, in many places. So that is how they use it. Still, they use this methodology. So, and then in the meantime, they infiltrating the Islamic knowledge into the Alevi theology and then mixing it in order um, to assimilate Alevis. So this is another problem right now. So this is a kind of very harsh epistemologic violence against Alevis. And during this closure of these temples, these lodges, Alevi lodges, and they confiscated all these like Alevi heritage and all these like books and documents whatsoever. And then now we don't know what happened to them. Beside them, there's a university called Gaz University. Systematically, they're collecting all these Alevi um, sort of books or documents whatsoever. We don't know what they do. They just like erasing from the surface among the people. So it's kind of like the historicizing. So as if they didn't have any history back then. So then they will connect them to the Islam as well. So that is now these Alevi texts, they revised. We know what does it mean revised, and they infiltrating all these Islamic terminologies, changing nearly totally the content, and then like republishing it as if like Alevi theology or knowledge. But in the meantime, in Turkish academia, the Alevism is not like studied until like 60 something, but since then they can only uh, be studied with in two direction. One is like connected folk Islam, connected with the shamanic prehistoric Turkish religion, and secondly is a folk Islam or like the Anatolian faith with the Islamic blended with Islam, this kind of stuff. Otherwise, if you like me, like following the data and then goes to like the origin of it, then you have problems. You never ever get any job in academia, and beside that, you can be imprisoned even. So you can be exiled as I am exiled right now. So that is the even the Alevi scholars who studied this subject, they really manipulated because in order to themselves to survive, to get job from the universities, they actually shifted all these kind of information. They sort of manipulated, and so they mixed with the Islam. Now we don't know what's going to happen. And beside them, the Western scholars who actually work on that. And there are like two main um, sources that they can get information. One, to have field work, and secondly, they can look through the written documents. So the written documents is sort of fakely produce information through the state sources, and the field work, whenever they go to field work, because if they don't really know it, they wouldn't give you the exact answer, the real answers, because it's dangerous for them. So they learn that, how to protect themselves. So again, you come in the circle that whatever produced is not really exactly the Alevi faith. So it's a kind of fakely reproduced information through now, which is, I call it total, it's kind of epistemic violence against Alevi faith and knowledge. So that is still continue, and socially Alevi still discriminated. For instance, they never ever in some state sort of based workshop. For instance, they never ever get any job in army, in police, police, and then like Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and MIT, the intelligence, and this is totally out of the Alevis. And secondly, if you have any job in other place, for instance, like being teacher or like ordinary a clerk in any kind of state office, and you never ever promote. If possible, they will have like a sort of mobbing on you. You have to like leave, or if not, then you have to stay there without any promotion at all. So that is how it works. This is like forcing you to either convert, assimilate, or to, they call it like social death, and to be like died without getting anything from society. In the meantime, they with the tax of Alevis, they 100% is sponsoring the Sunni Islam, like financing 90,000 mosque and like all the stuff and everything with the Islam. So the Jemevis, for instance, they created, because Jemevis normally when they had to migrate to the urban sites in Turkey. So the most important thing, they didn't know what to do with this funeral, because the death is a traumatic issue and need to be collectively deal with. So in some cases, they didn't want to take their loved one to the mosque, but in some cases, mosque also didn't want, because they think that Alevi are also heretic as well. So to solve this problem, they had to create some kind of like institution they call Cemevi, means the house of the gem, this gem ceremony. And then the most important reason for that, because it was, they didn't know what to do with the funeral. So in this gem, because they didn't let them to, as they didn't, the state doesn't accept as a faith, and they had to open as an association or cultural center. The first thing, they put like morgue over there in order to take care of this funeral and so on. But until now, and I must say that although we never know, because they never tell us, the population of Alevi in Turkey is between 15 million to 20 million. Still, state doesn't want accept anything that Alevi looking for. For instance, despite that several verdicts of the European Court of Human Rights that's um, saying Turkey violating the human rights of Alevis, because they're forcing Alevi children to compulsory courses of Sunni Islam, yet Turkey never ever obeyed these rules, these verdicts. So they still continue forcing students to that. And this continues, this social and epistemic violence in full course continue with the Alevi faith as well. I think I will stay here. Yeah, thank you so much. That's all by now. And thank you for inviting me again. Thanks. Bye.
Dhanyavad, Dr. Deniz ji, for this deeply illuminating discussion. The Alevi experience, like so many others we've explored today, is a reminder that erasure is never just about history. It's about power. It's about who gets to exist freely, who must fight for recognition, and who is forced into silence. The patterns of persecution and marginalization that you've described resonate with the struggles faced by Hindus and other indigenous traditions around the world. The denial of Alevi sacred geography, myths, and rituals is a part of the same global phenomenon that seeks to erase communities that do not conform to dominant narratives. Your research not only preserves these stories that future generations know, but ensures that future generations know what was nearly lost. It reminds us that resistance is not just political, it's cultural, it's spiritual, and it is essential. Let's all take a moment to thank Dr. Deniz Ji for sharing her research and for bringing much needed awareness to the struggles of the Alevi people.